Greetings, my fellow freedom loving sovereign thinkers. This is L3's News Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida. And today's date, Tuesday, May 30th, 2017. Yeah, I'm going to say it's another sooner summer. Rained a little bit in Fort Lauderdale. That's okay. Yeah, I'll be at, good grief, I'm just mumbling here. Sorry about that. I'm podcasting at CJ's Java Lounge, located at 400 Southwest 1st Avenue along the New River of Fort Lauderdale, which is adjacent, or not adjacent, but rather the southwest section of the Andrews Avenue Bridge. Ooh, yeah. So, this is interesting. Been reading, this came out an hour ago on the Palm Beach Post. Talks about the 3 Mile Island plant that shut down in 2019. It's from the Associated Press. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to be exact. Owner of 3 Mile Island site of the United States' worst commercial nuclear power accident said Monday it will shut down the plant in 2019 without a financial rescue from Pennsylvania. Elkson's Corporation's announcement comes after when calls for more than 5 years of losses on the single-unit power plant and its recent failure in an auction to sell 3 Mile Island's power into the regional grid. In the meantime, the Chicago-based energy company wants Pennsylvania to give nuclear power megawatts the kind of preferential treatment and premium payments that are given to renewable energies, such as wind and solar. Nuclear power plants have been hammered by natural gas boom that has slashed electricity prices within competitive markets. In March 1979, equipment failure and operator errors led to the partial core meltdown of the 3 Mile Island 2 reactors. The damaged reactor has been mothballed since, but other reactors are still in use. Excelon said that its operating costs just one unit at the plant are high, further damaging 3 Mile Island's financial viability. Perhaps nuclear power's biggest nemesis is the cheap natural gas flooding the market from the Northeast's Marcellus Shale Reservoir, the nation's most prolific gas field. Meanwhile, electricity consumption hit a wall after the recession, while states have emphasized renewable energies and efficiency. So-called nuclear bailouts have thus far one approved in Illinois and New York. The potential for higher utility bills in Pennsylvania and other states is drawing pushback from rival energy companies, manufacturers, and consumer advocates. Pennsylvania is the nation's number 2 nuclear power state. That is interesting. I remember that time when this occurred. Of course, equipment failure, operators' errors. You could say, too, about that on operators' errors, what they have in common with the accident with the Challenger and the Exxon Valdez is the staff are overtired, overworked, not enough rest. This what occurred, and it did affect that area pretty damn well it did. That whole area, possible Harrisburg, York, southern Pennsylvania, maybe Maryland. All I know. And you know what? There's other areas people can work on, get their energies. It doesn't have to be government funded and so forth. But when you got bureaucrats, mercantilism and all that, trying to tell you got to do it this way or else. Well, people got to just tell them to stick it up their ass, as far as I'm concerned. That's how I feel with these areas, like Fukushima, and there's another example, earthquake and so forth. And another thing, too, about these nuclear power plants, They're on these. A lot of them are on these fault lines. So more an astute concept, I would say. I don't know how healthy that place is going to be. You wonder how many people actually passed or got illnesses based from the reactor in 3 Mile Island. So, it's just one of those things, my friends. You got to look at other areas to get your resources. And technology is coming up with a lot of things, including solar power generators and all that. One day you could light up your whole home on your own without. It's already been designed. You can make nuclear solar power to your whole home without any power company tell you how to do it. So pursue and let it be. If it completely shuts down, let it be, man. I know I'm just a bit zombified here, so forgive me on that. All right, let's just check this out here. This is a little bit more essential. This is by Dave Swanson, antiwar.com. Believe the Russian hacking claim. Government lies are common when seducing a population to support a war, but Russian hacking claims are unusual in that U.S. officials supply no evidence while the fact is just assumed. Kinda, sort of. It's the only way. Exactly. Let's just see what I have to say here. Again, when the U.S. public was told that Spain had blown up the Maine, or Vietnam had returned fire, or Iraq had stockpiled weapons, or Libya was planning to massacre, the claim were straightforward and provable. Before people began referring to the Gulf of Tonkin incident, somebody had to lie that it had happened, and there had to be an understanding of what had supposedly happened. No investigation into whether anything had happened could have taken it as its starting point. The certainty that the Vietnamese attack or attacks had happened had no investigation whether the Vietnamese attack had happened could have focused its efforts on unrelated matters, such as whether anyone in Vietnam had ever done business with any relatives or colleagues of Robert McNamara. All this is otherwise with the idea that the Russian government determined the outcome of the 2016 U.S. presidential election. U.S. corporate media reports often claim that Russia did decide the election or try to do that or wanted to try to do that. But they also often admit not to knowing whether any such thing is the case. There is no established account with or without evidence to support it of what exactly Russia supposedly did. And yet there are countless articles casually referring as if to establish the fact too. Russian influence in the 2016 presidential election. This is by Yahoo. Russian attempt to disrupt the election. New York Times. Russian interference in the 2016 U.S. presidential election. ABC. Russian influence over the 2016 presidential election. The Intercept. Multi-pronged investigation to uncover the full extent of Russia's election meddling. Time magazine. Russia interference is the U.S. election. Interference in the U.S. election. CNN. Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. American Constitution Society. Russian hacking in U.S. election. Business Standard. Yeah, so all these papers like trying to masturbate the climax that the Russians did it. The Russians made them do it, right? Come on. Obama strikes back at Russia for election hacking. We're told by the New York Times, but was it election hacking? Its definition seems very widely, and what evidence is there of Russia having done it? The Russian interference in the 2016 United States elections even exists as a factual event in Wikipedia, not as an allegation or a theory, but factual nature, or it is not so much asserted as brushed aside. Former CIA Director John Brennan, in the same congressional testimony in which he took the principled stand, I don't do evidence, testified that the fact that the Russians try to influence resources, authority, and power, and the fact that the Russians try to influence the election so that the will of American people was not going to be realized by the last election, I find outrageous and something what we need to do. We need to, with every last ounce of devotion to this country, resist and try to act to prevent further instances of that. He provided no evidence. I don't do evidence. This guy, these people are so pathetic, punching like jackasses in heat, I would say, The Russians did it, but I got nothing to back it up. I have my hands in my pocket, so I say so. My rhetoric supersedes prima facie just cause, because I am so-and-so. I'm special. Look at these bunch of buffoons, you know what I'm saying, friends? Activists have even planned demonstrations to call for urgent investigations into Russian interference in the U.S. election. They declare that every day we learned more about the Russian state-led hacking and information warfare played in the 2016 election. March for Truth believe that Russia helped put Trump in the White House is steadily rising in the U.S. public. Anything commonly referred to fact will gain credibility. People will assume that at some point someone actually established that it was a fact. Keeping the word in the news without evidence of articles or polling about the opinions of celebrities and about all kinds of tangentially related scandals, their investigations and obstruction thereof. Most of the substance of most of the articles that lead off with reference to the Russian influence on the election is about White House officials having some sort of connections to the Russian government or Russian businesses or just Russians. If an investigation of Iraqi WMD claims focused on Blackwater murders, or whether Scooter Libby had taken lessons in Arabic, or whether the photo of Saddam Hussein and Donald Rumsfeld shaking hands was taken by an Iraqi, a general trend away from empirical evidence that has been extensively noted and discussed. There is no public evidence that Seth Rich, a Democratic National Committee staffer who was murdered last year, leaked Democratic emails, and then there is that the Russian government stole them. Yet both claims have passionate believers. Still, the claims about Russia are unique in their wide proliferation, broad acceptance, and status as something to be constantly referred to as though already established, constantly augmented by other Russia-related stories that add nothing to the central claim. This phenomenon, in my view, is as dangerous as any lies and fabrications coming out of the racist right. I can't blame him on that, friends. It is hilarious and it is insulting as well. That's why I laugh about these areas, because a lot of these folks, even on Facebook, I still hear people talk about Facebook with the Russians this, the Russians that. I hate Trump. I hate this, and it's like, come on. Yeah, I'm like, come on. It's just totally pathetic, okay, and weak, and totally dumbed down. This is what they want you to believe. Making these statements is like saying, yeah, well, we got to do it this way. And you know what? This is a total farce and a half, my friends. And I'm not really too keen with a lot of folks out there. And this is why I'm very vigilant. Always verify. Have your evidence, your facts. There's got to be prima facie, not lip service. There's people out there still believe lip service supersedes prima facie just cause, and they think, yeah, that's such a turn on. Shows their true manliness. Well, nothing new at all. So, this is why I just get a big kick out of these people, because they don't know what they're talking about, and try to use that same boogeyman theory. Okay? It's like the same thing. They attacked us because of our freedoms. They attacked us because of our liberties. They took advantage of a free society. They They did this, they did that because we love being free. That's why they attacked us. Same scenario, different package. It's all mind control 101. And I got even my members of my family we're talking about the whole Russian thing. I said, look, it's blowing hot air as usual. That's why you always got to be vigilant, observant, pay attention, read between the lines, and all that stuff. If it was influenced by Israel, the Vatican, they would be having to give them a ticker tape parade and go, glory, hallelujah, 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 go, bum, 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 bum. They'll be doing all that stuff for them. Pure hypocrisy, as far as I'm concerned. Double standards, double speak. But you know what? I'm not buying the damn story at all about the Russians that were involved with the election. Come on, folks. You should know better than that if you still believe that hoopla. Mind control 101. So when other folks that I realize, look at CNN, the Counterfeit News Network, it's still talking about the damn Russian connection because their ratings are so pathetic. Probably have Pierce Morgan in it, he'll probably give them better ratings. And I say that ironic, irony way. Well, you know what? As I always got to say is this. This stuff is going to blow back in their faces. I guarantee you that. And, I'm very critical of Donald Trump and a lot of his actions as well. But it has merit. That's all it is. If you're critical, have merit, don't be a parrot. And what they're doing about the whole Russian ties, and everyone's talking about the Russians, this, the Russians, that, and even people on Facebook are still talking about that. You know what? They're being a bunch of parrots. Plain and simple. Because they hate the man so much. They can't even, and they forget their logic. They toss their logic out the window or into the dumpster or in the river. So, always think for yourselves, even to my fellow listeners. I like that. I'm not trying to say, look, the third said so. No. I don't even go for that either. It's all about is, my friend, is the information. All right? Cool, so let's check out this. In a moment, I'll be back in a brief. Beep, 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 beep. Okay, so next here is very interesting. Came out a few days ago, I would say. Yeah, it came out a while, and it's an interesting little subject. It's about Islamic terrorism, our ally for 38 years. This is from worldaffairs.blog. Came out a couple days ago, to be exact. And it's interesting here. And let's just read what they have to say. And who wrote this? One moment. I didn't really say here. That's okay. But let's just check it out what it has to say. Dear Diary, I can't show this letter to the innocent people of America and the world, so it's just between you and me. Imagine the shock and outrage if I say we have to embrace Islamic terrorism. The average person doesn't understand what's at stake and how sometimes the elites need to rely on controlled chaos for the greater good. Islamic terrorists are wonderful instruments for proxy wars. They cost very little but fight fearlessly. They are a global resource that can be brought to any local conflict. They are also expendable. We use them when convenient and kill them when inconvenient. In this shock of the conscience of people, it just means they haven't been paying keen attention. Consider the following examples. Thomas Friedman of the New York Times wrote that we shouldn't attack ISIS in Syria, and we should even consider arming ISIS to overthrow Assad. And there's some sources here you can see for yourselves. And he's not making this up. All right? Oh, yeah. It has all the merits. So we'll just leave it at that. All right? John Kerry admitted the U.S. tried to use ISIS to force Assad into negotiations. Israeli military chief explained Israel prefers ISIS to Assad. Israeli defense minister recounted ISIS never intentionally attacked us, and when it happened, ISIS apologized immediately. Hillary Clinton wrote, Saudi Arabia and Qatar and armed ISIS. Joe Biden and General Martin Dempsey, General Wesley Clark all have stated that U.S. allies in the Middle East and fund al-Qaeda and ISIS. Several State Department cables have clearly laid out how Saudi Arabia is the number one source to fund terrorism around the world, not just in the Middle East. Ever wonder why we never go to war against or impose sanctions on these sponsors of terrorism? Heck, we don't even condemn them. What goes through a reader's mind when they see an article titled Accepting of Al-Qaeda that is published by the Council of Foreign Relations, the think tank behind U.S. policy, or when Hillary Clinton's chief foreign policy advisor wrote to her, Al-Qaeda is on our side? I can give many more such examples, but let's hop on the time machine for a moment. Afghanistan, 1979 and 1989. We used the Mujahideen to defeat the Soviet Union. What, that's not a good thing? Remember how the media and Hollywood glorify these Afghan fighters in the 1980s? The Afghan rebels even got to visit the White House. There are two critical factors that are often forgotten in the Mujahideen story. Foreign fighters from all over the world and fundamentalist Islam. In the 1980s, more than 35,000 so-called Arab Afghans came from all over the world to fight the Russians. And we wouldn't have been able to motivate them to do without appealing to the concept of Islam, Caliphate al-Jihad, fight for Allah. Is far more effective than fight for country X. Fighters motivated by religion are also extremely useful in the battle since they are not afraid of death. The mindset is essential for the use of suicide bombers without whom many battles and wars would have not been won. In other words, they're just pawns of the game. We also learned from Saudi Arabia that indoctrination is essential to create good soldiers. So the CIA came up with clever textbooks for Afghan kids that introduced them to concepts of jihad, weapons, and hatred for Russians. And they have the little alphabet book here. Okay, that's CIA-sponsored textbooks. U.S. published CIA textbooks for first grade Afghan kids in 1980. A for Allah. J is for jihad, is an obligation. T is for tough man, rebel, rifle. My father buys rifles for Mujahideens. D is for din, religion. Our religion is Islam. Russians are the enemies, just to give you a little example. Since then, Saudi Arabia has spent billions of dollars on Islamic schools, madrasas, all over the world. These schools act as breeding grounds for future activists, extremists, and fighters. Saudis also print textbooks that are used all over the world. Kids learn loving messages such as killing Shiites, killing Christians, and Jews. Saudi mosques and preachers from all over the world also continue spreading extremist messages. So how come the United States is still bending over Saudi Arabia, including the Trump administration, when Donald Trump signed the agreement, $100 billion arms agreement for the Saudis themselves? Can we say hypocrisy? All right, then we'll just proceed here. When the Afghan war was about to be won, it dawned on us that the Mujahideen Project was a brilliant playbook that would replicate in other parts of the world. That's when Al-Qaeda was formed, and it was perfect timing. You see, Halliburton just had discovered oil reserves near the Caspian Sea, but the countries around the region were all pro-Russian after the fall of the USSR. Without knowledge of the American public, the Mujahideen were very active all throughout the 1990s in Bosnia, Kosovo, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Dagestan, Chechnya, etc. These fires were used for these three major purposes. 1. Throw out pro-Russia dictators. Install pro-West leaders who help us build oil, gas pipelines, agreed to host U.S. military bases and disrupt Russian pipelines and other interests. Yes, can we say Grand Chessboard by Zygmunt Brzezinski as part of the Eurasian region? Azerbaijan was an easy one when we got our man in 1993. Georgia took a long time, but George Soros and his color revolution finally installed our guy in 2005. Within the year, we had a 1,000-mile pipeline that linked Azerbaijan, the Caspian Sea, Georgia, and Turkey. Chechnya was a partial success. They were struggling for independence from Russia and thus gladly welcomed the Mujahideen, who had plenty of Saudi money and U.S. weapons. Within the short time, the nonviolent mystical Sufism of Chechnya was taken over by the Saudi Wahhabism. Al-Qaeda started blowing up Russian pipelines. Russia invaded Chechnya in 1994, lost the war, and withdrew. It was fun to watch the news those days, but then Putin became prime minister 3 years later, waged a ruthless law against the jihadists, won decisively, and installed his own strongman in Chechnya. Even Sufism has seen a major rival lately, and Chechens have now started rejecting Wahhabism and jihadism. Al-Qaeda was extremely helpful in Bosnia, Albania, Macedonia, and Kosovo. In the late 1990s, we used trumped-up charges and NATO bombing to get rid of Russia guy in Serbia. Away from the heart of Eurasia, Islamic extremism and terrorism played major roles in Africa, Middle East, and Asia to catalyze geopolitical transformations. In Libya, Syria, Yemen, and Somalia, we depend on Muslim Brotherhood, Al-Qaeda, and Salafists, those who follow extreme fundamentalist Sunni Islam. In Libya, we leveraged the Al-Qaeda affiliated called Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. We released its leader, Belhajad, from CIA prison, dressed him up in a night suit, arranged a photo op with John McCain, CFR scumbag himself, and he became the freedom fighter who fought Gaddafi, the brutal dictator. Another bend over Bob and proud. All right, I'll just keep on going here. In Syria, tens of thousands of Al-Qaeda fighters were flown in from all over the world to topple Assad. If it were not for Putin's evil interventions, we would now have a Qatar pipeline through Syria, and Israel would be drilling oil in Golan Heights. A tragic situation indeed. In Africa, Nigeria is a strategic country with 170 million people and a land rich in oil and natural resources. That's where Boko Haram, African ISIS, comes into play. It has been extremely successful in every way. Also thanks to Boko Haram, the half of Nigeria is under Sharia law, which is a great tool to control people. In Asia, we need to prevail upon Thailand, Indonesia, and the Philippines. Without them, we lose much of Asia to China. Sharia law and Salafism are gaining momentum in Indonesia, which is a positive sign. Philippines' crazy leader, Duterte, has been too friendly with Russia and China. He will lose his popularity and get replaced if the ISIS affiliate Abu Sayyaf causes enough problems. If he fights back against ISIS, we will cry human rights and Islamophobia at the UN and impose sanctions. Thailand has been foolishly moving into Russia-China's sphere of influence. Well, this peaceful Buddhist country has been facing Sunni Salafist extremism in the south. Thai leaders must realize that the entire tourism industry is very vulnerable. A few bombings and attacks by jihadists can have serious effects. And there's photos of this here. That's so-called ISIS affiliate folks. Finally, let's look at Europe. There has been a lot of problems with mass immigration, terrorism, crimes, etc. However, every crisis is an opportunity. Some call it a problem, reaction, solution. Terrorism is the problem, fear is a reaction, government is the solution. The Hegelian theory. Terrorism and crime gives us a chance to militarize the police in the EU, create an NSA for entire Europe, and even an EU army. The financial burden caused by refugees also allow us to impose austerity and cut wasteful welfare spending. Mass immigration will also result in a more homogeneous European society. 20 years from now, there won't be much difference between France and Germany. This means much easier management of the EU. moving forward is the biggest economic challenge for us will be China. However, it has an Achilles heel. The western province of Xinjiang that is predominantly made of Muslims, with help from Turkey, we have already created an Xinjiang and Islamist movement that is calling for secession. China's one belt, one road is very dependent on freight trains safely traveling through that region on their way to Europe. Our future Mujahideen in Xinjiang will come in handy if China starts to misbehave. It took us about 60 years to unify North and South America to a great degree under a common financial, corporate, economic, and military system. Venezuela is the odd man out, but we're working on it. It may take another 60 years to unify Europe, Russia, and China. Then we will have a global governance and the ultimate new world order. No borders, no walls, one world, and bringing that to fruition. We have many arrows in our quiver. Trade, financial, military aid, coups, color revolution, sanctions, wars, etc. But Islamic terrorism and fundamentalism will continue playing the indispensable roles, and that's why we must accept them and embrace them. You gotta look. I gotta admit one thing. This is. You see the bigger picture here, my friends? That's what this person's writing about. Something to really look at. So, that's why, my friends, you always gotta see things in a bigger picture than what it is. So, one thing I tell folks, that's why when you talk about ICE so forth, I say New World Order agenda. Even what happened in Orlando, for example, I did brought that up as well. It's not trying to be a nut job. It's just looking at things a lot broader. In other words, paying attention, which many folks try to see here. Just something I really realize, observe, and look. I've been saying this for many years. ISIS is New World Order funded. And it's another example of political corruption. You try to use this as weaponry. And like I said, it is completely unacceptable. So, another thing as well, fear factor, the Hegelian theory he used in here as well. So, but they'll say Muslim, but who's actually controlling them? It's not organic with these folks. Shahir law and all that. It's always the puppets, the pawns of the game, like I said before. It's why, my friends, and even the people who are Muslims by faith, better really focus on this. Don't fall in this hype and hoopla, because these folks won't give a damn about you as well. So, it's a great article, I gotta say. I really like this. And folks, I post also my footnotes on Spreaker. If you want to share it, do it. It has to be brought out. So, I'll be back. Alright, enough of that ranting on Islamic terrorism. It's also obvious, once again, funded by your friends from the New World Order who don't give a damn about you. Alright, next one here came out May 28th by Kurt Demo from Another Day in the Empire. It's called Exercise in Futility. MI5 to investigate itself over Manchester missed warnings. MI5 has launched 2 urgent inquiries into how it missed danger posed by Manchester bomber Salman Ebedi and may claim his interest in being a potential terrorist killer was repeatedly reported to the authorities. British Domestic Security Service started one review last week, which aimed to quickly identify any glaring errors, while others will be more in-depth, the Guardian has learned. MI5 and the British intelligence have a long track record of protecting and enabling terrorists, so such an investigation will be less than futile. MI5 doesn't miss warnings about terrorist attacks. It simply does not act on them. All major terror leaders in Britain are monitored. Informers attach themselves to key people. In fact, a number of Islamist movements leaders in Britain are either informers or cooperate with British intelligence. So they're hired bitches, in other words. There has been a fact since at least early 1980s. Manchester suicide bomber Salman al-Abadi is linked to the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. A group of LIFG members lived in close proximity to Abadi and Raleigh Range. LFIG is a proscribed terrorist group and listed as such by the U.S. government, and yet numbers of LFG radicals operated out of Manchester. Most telling is the accusation of MI5 worked with LIFG in a plot to kill Libyan leader Gaddafi. The mission failed. That fits the distinct patterns British intelligence allow known and dangerous terrorists to live and organize in the country. Is not an act of information gathered by informers and terrorist blocks. They refuse to allow its collaborators to be prosecuted for crimes committed outside the country. Hamas communications between Al-Qaeda and Islamists in Britain and does nothing about it. The following sections of articles from History Commons is a timeline showing the deception and the mendacity of British intelligence. It gives you a whole line from 84 to now. So, 2006. So it's like a whole smoke and mirrors as usual. You can read these links yourselves, and it's always someone bigger than what it is. That's what I call sponsor. That's what many of them call government-sponsored terrorism. Like I see this as Manchester part of that, part in an example. So same old song and dance, my friends. And when these folks going to figure it out once again about who is on the payroll, not some Joe Blow, some ragtag living in the cave or in a mosque, but someone higher up, if you know what I'm saying, oligarchs related. And so we're just gonna let the negligence keep going, and many people will suffer, so they can say, "You need us, the government. Without us, you'll be dead." That's how they're trying to pursue mind control at its finest. So, this one here came out from the Activist Post. It originally was from Daily Sheeple. Some good news. Disturbing, but, after 25 years in prison, man is finally free after being framed by Detroit PD. After being locked up in prison for 25 years, the entire time claiming he was framed by Detroit Police Department, a man finally gets to taste his freedom. New test has absolved Desmond Ricks, now 51, of a 1992 murder he certain police framed for him. Rick has never changed his story, but the same cannot be said for the police, who switched out the evidence. Since being accused of murder of his friend Gary Bennett, Ricks has denied that he committed the crime and alleged that the cops framed him with false evidence. And his claim have not been now been vindicated. A judge on Friday threw out a number of murder convictions of Desmond Ricks, who has been in prison for a quarter of a century after new tests on the bullets supported his remarkable claim that police framed him with bogus evidence. The bullets removed from the victim's body were in poor shape and didn't resemble the pristine bullets that were presented as evidence by Detroit police in 1992. Police at the same time said a gun belongs to Rick's mother was a murder weapon, but new tests now have ruled out any connection. Innocence Clinic Director David Moran said one of the bullets doesn't match the gun, and the other bullet was too mutilated for a thorough analysis, he said. Rebecca Hahn, a supervising attorney with the Innocence Clinic, says that calls into question of credibility of all evidence used in Rick's case. Detroit police closed its crime lab in 2008 after investigations revealed numerous problems with testing and handling of evidence. The lab's riddled with scandals and, more often than not, mishandled evidence. The corruption of DPD's lab of course, stemmed from the corruption in the police department itself, seeking only conviction, not the truth. The Detroit Police Department falsified evidence, according to Ricks, from day one. This new lab testing backs Rick's story and that police framed him. The Innocence Clinic and Michigan Law School have exonerated 10 people and freed 4 others since 2008 by exposing bad police work in Michigan, finding new witnesses, and tapping specialists. Ricks had a key ally in his bid to reopen the case, an independent firearms expert who was involved in the 92 trial. He found David Townsend's name in the Law Journal in 2009 and wrote him from prison. Townsend agreed to help. Townshend agreed to help. He recalled that bullets originally presented to him by police appeared to be in excellent shape with no trace of blood or hair that would suggest they were removed from the victim's brain and spine. Townshend said they didn't resemble the actual bullets that were locked away in police storage and produced just 2 years ago. Townsend's a hero, Moran said. He was willing to put his reputation on the line. But it wasn't only Townshend who helped save Ricks from his life sentence. Moran also attributed to Ricks sticking to his story and following through. Ricks was a great advocate for his own cause, Moran said. What he was saying seemed to be outlandish. The Detroit Police Crime Lab will not only make mistakes but switch bullets. It wasn't outlandish. It was true. This outlandish conduct cost Desmond Ricks 25 years. Luckily, Ricks is now a free man, but after only spending half of his life locked up, no amount of money could ever make up for what he has done to this man. But Innocence Clinic is at least making strides to do the right the wrongs committed by the corrupt Detroit police. As far as I'm concerned, those assholes in there, they should be locked up and put on trial. Bunch of sons of bitches that you are. I have a friend of mine who lives there said they're one of the most pathetic, disgusting entities around the country. And of course, WXYZ did a report on that too, about federal corruption investigation of the Detroit police. These people should be locked up in general public. How many people they screwed over and got away with it? That's what you call filthy pieces of trash with badges. If they think they're higher than everybody else, you're nothing but scumbags. I hate to break it that way. This is why, my friends, you never trust the government. You never bend over for these delegates. You gotta be vigilant and stern. Now you got these body cameras. It's time to use it and let people know what's really going on. And all you little goody two-shoes out there, you better wake up. Because this could happen to any of us. I remember the time with the Miami River Cops case was broken wide open. Dale Carson, who is I think retired or emeritus defense attorney in Jacksonville, he wrote a book about it called Arrest Proof Yourself. He broke that case wide open as an FBI agent because he was a former Miami cop. He made that statement. The goal is to arrest many people as possible. So they became Uncle Toms and Aunt Mamas to the state with that mindset. Everyone at police have that frame of mind? Absolutely not. That's why I'm not going to attack them collectively. Only the ones with these unacceptable ethics. In other words, condemning. I'm glad that Mr. Desmond Ricks is free and other people as well. And we got to give the organization as well, Innocence Clinic, give them a thumbs up. And of course, David Townsend as well. These are the kind of people we need to network with. Who cares about the whole damn thing was going on with Kate Perry and Tiger Woods? Who the hell cares? That and idolize Hollywood celebrities and athletes and so forth. These are people we need to network with. And because when you do, you exercise vigilance. Eternal vigilance is the key to liberty. So, finally, I know I'm running some time here. Yeah, okay, one more, and I'll be done. This is here came from 10th Amendment Center. If I'm correct, is Meharry, right? Yeah, Mike Meharry. Once again, I love his work. You always check it out. Massachusetts bill would help block federal militarization of police. And he needs to be done over there. A bill introduced in Massachusetts House would take a first step toward limiting the impact of federal programs that militarize local police. This came out today, by the way. Representative Denise Provost, Democrat from Middlesex, introduced the bill, House Bill 2503, earlier this year. The legislation would prohibit law enforcement agencies from acquiring a long list of military equipment from federal surplus programs without local government approval. The law would apply both to the well-known 1033 program along with any other military surplus programs operated by the federal government. The legislation covers an extensive list of military items, including unmanned aerial vehicles, armored vehicles, bayonets, bombs, direct energy weapons, grenade launchers, international mobile subscriber, identity catchers, launch vehicles, mines, missiles, radioactive nuclear weapons, rocket silencers, torpedoes, toxicological agents, including chemical agents, biological agents, and associated equipment, and ultrasonic devices used for crowd dispersal. If a citizen in Massachusetts got that, they'll be called criminal, right? It's just like it's a bizarro world, man. Police departments often obtain military equipment from federal government in complete secrecy. If we do it, we're terrorists, right? Requiring local government approval would bring the process into the open and provide an opportunity for concerned residents to stop the acquisition through their local representatives. Federal surplus and grant money. Through the federal 1033 program, local police departments procure military-grade weapons, including atomic assault rifles, body armor, and mine-resisting armored vehicles, essentially unarmed tanks. Police departments can't even get their hands on military helicopters and other aircraft. Department of Homeland Security runs a Homeland Security Grant Program, which in 2013 gave more than $900 million in counterterrorism funds to state and local police. According to a 2012 Senate report, this money has been used to purchase tactical vehicles, drones, and even tanks with little obvious benefit to public safety. And according to ProPublica, in 1994, the Justice Department and the Pentagon funded a 5-year program to adapt military security and surveillance technology for local police departments that they would otherwise not be able to afford. So to say, we own you, bitches. That's what they want to say. They want you to bend over for the feds. H-2503 would stop police from getting military equipment from both programs without local government approval. This would ensure accountability and transparency. Command and control, arming peace officers like the raid to occupy an enemy city is totally contrary to the society envisioned by the founders. They've turned protect and serve into command and control. In the 1980s, the federal government began arming, funding, and training local police forces, turning peace officers into soldiers to fight in this unconstitutional war on drugs. The militarization went into hyperdrive after 9/11 when a second front opened up on the war on terror. Yep, what they both have in common, the conflict with its people. By making it more difficult for local police for its military-grade gear and ensuring they can't do it in secret, it makes them less likely to cooperate with the feds and removes incentives for partnerships. Passage of H-2503 would take a first step toward limiting police militarization in Massachusetts. What's next? H-2503 was referred to the Joint Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, where it needs to pass by majority vote before moving on in the legislative process. So I'd like to tell everyone, in the spirit of America, Massachusetts, make Paul Revere proud by harassing the crap out of your representatives to support 2503. When will this propaganda matrix end? The 10th Amendment is a solution. And you got to give that Representative Denise Provost. Homage. Yeah, she's a Democrat. Doesn't matter, but it's principle. Okay? Knock out the partisan politics and focus on common interest. So I do endorse this to the fullest because it needs to happen in all 50 states. Good example, I went down to Fort Lauderdale last night. I see this license plate reader ahead. I told them to stick it. That's how I really feel about this. Yeah, I get a little bit vulgar at times on my show. I have no intent. But there are days I'm like, they believe you're just a bunch of morons not going to do a damn thing about it. But one thing I know for sure, each individual, freedom-loving, sovereign-thinking person out there can make a difference. Action conquers fear. We're all doing it one way or the other. If you complain and don't take action, then shut up. If you do take action, expect a few dents along the road. Potholes and climbing walls, jumping hurdles. That's what movements are about. Preserving freedom. Just resisting tyranny. So, support it. And that is all. I can thank everyone for listening to the show. Plus, feel free to download and share throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting that I may want to be interested in, whatever you do, please send your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Breaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, Minds.com, Patreon.com, FutureNet.club, and anything else. I already said Tumblr. Say it again. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com. That's the number 3 to be exact. Or you can encrypted fans, LokiLuck03, which is both numbers 0 and 3, at protonmail.com. Okay, my friends. Thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.